Hi, this is Steve with DECWARE. There's a story behind the unique tube we use in our 2-watt amplifiers that I thought you might enjoy. When I was developing the original 2-watt Zen triode amplifier, it originally used EL84 output tubes. This small pentode was popular in the 50s and 60s in console stereos. It was wired in pentode and put out about 5 watts into stiff paper speakers that were very high efficiency. So much so that when you cranked it, it got chest-thumping loud. I miss those days. The engineering was so great on those consoles. Even the perforated backs that looked like pegboard were part of the cabinet tuning. The sound of those consoles could be picked out from a room away just by the top-to-bottom speed they offered. About a year into the sales of the original Zen triode amplifier, Svetlana contacted me about a near Russian equivalent tube that they were rebranding as an SV83. They said it was a potential replacement for an EL84 in some amplifiers and knew that we were using that tube. Eric Barber of Svetlana had mentioned how great this tube was and that he had contacted almost everyone in the industry who makes tube amps and no one wanted anything to do with it. I guess I was the last one on his list to call. Of course, in hindsight, we ended up using all of those Svetlana SV83 tubes until they were gone, and several times more than that directly from Russia, without the rebranding, which we still continue to use today. The tube has some impressive specs over and above an EL84. Firstly, it's a true pentode, not a beam power pentode like the EL84, where the suppressor grid is internally connected to the cathode. In the SV83, each element was independent. This can make a big difference when wiring the tube as a triode. By the time the first pair hit my bench back in '98, I had already long abandoned pentode operation in the amplifier. Despite the 5 watts versus 2 watts, the 2 watts of triode operation put more music into the room with far greater density and ease. So by the time the tubes arrived, it was just a matter of plug and play. No adjustments were needed. What makes this tube so different from an EL84 is that it's actually a military video tube designed for radar displays. Since it is a video tube, it must have wider frequency response than an audio tube, which it does. The glass is extra thick. You would hate to have your radar display go down every time a shock wave rings through the ship from artillery shells hitting the deck. The tube has a much finer grid, which is gold alloy, giving it the ability to resolve higher frequencies, such as would be seen in video applications. The rating on this grid is lower than an EL84, so it cannot be used in many, if not most, EL84 amplifiers. The reason the Zen triode amplifier works with it is because we choose to drop the voltage between the triode strap plate and screen using a resistor of an abnormally high value. At the time, it was done purely for sound because it added depth to the sound stage at the expense of a tiny amount of power. Good impact rating is another benefit of this small compact tube. You can drop one without damaging it, internally or otherwise. 10,000 hour life is another benefit. Most tubes do well to see half that, and I've seen these go twice that in our amplifiers due to the lower voltages and currents we drive them at. High reliability in cathode bias circuits ensures happy customers. And if you know anything about DECWARE, it's a company that creates happy customers. The sound of this tube compared to the EL84 is a bit faster, certainly more neutral, has better micro detail on the top. The downside is that this tube is and has always been new old stock military surplus and hasn't been manufactured in over 50 years. Supplies are limited in any kind of quantity, and the war in Russia hasn't helped. That said, there are always many available on eBay, and if you just want a couple pairs, I can't imagine a time when that would ever be a problem. We have enough inventory to support our backlog, and then some, and if we had to, we can just have more made. Our 2-watt amplifiers are compatible with EL84 tubes even today, and there are some EL83 tubes that would also work reasonably well. The beauty of a Zen triode amplifier, the original 2-watt series, is the cathode biasing. It makes the amplifier more compatible with different output tubes and ensures that each type sound their best. Our original model still uses a common cathode bias for both output tubes, so that you don't need closely matched tubes to get closely matched channel balance and solid imaging. Anyway, compared to larger tubes, these will always be special. I would invite you to schedule a listening appointment here at DECWARE so you can hear a pair with some ideal speakers in a decent room. You can hear for yourself why these small tubes help set the bar so high in every category, including dynamics and bass control. Happy listening, and have a great day.